My Cosmic Autumn Rebellion. Fall came and I returned to Hip Forest University a much more confident young adult than I was when I left. I knew that I was going to complete the rest of college as an English major with a philosophy minor, and that decision was final. With that uncertainty out of the way, I was able to enjoy exploring the great unknown without feeling like I could possibly be wasting time. With philosophy of mind and biology of mycospore as a couple of my classes, it was quite the heady semester. In philosophy of mind, we read papers with far-out ideas, such as What It's Like to Be a Bat by Thomas Nagel. His whole argument was that the unique neurological structures of different organisms render their experiences impossible for other species to truly understand. In short, you will never know what it's like to be a bat, and no one ever will. In biology of mycospore, we took field trips to local forests every Thursday to go hunting for non-psychoactive mycospore, which we would later classify in the lab. I kept the green power flowing heavily in my veins for both of those classes, and my final grades didn't suffer, or at least not as badly as they could have. Those days were light-hearted, and my new dorm living conditions were ideal. Andreas and I shared a double in one of the newest dorm buildings, which even had its own shower and bathroom. There was also a jam room on the bottom floor we could access practically whenever we wanted to. I was one of the only juniors on the floor, and Andreas was one of the only sophomores, so we were surrounded by freshmen otherwise. It was a strange combination of feeling superior because of age, but lame because I wasn't living off campus yet. I was only a second-year student at Hip Forest University, and it was a rule that I had to live on campus for 2 years. On the first day that Andreas and I moved in, we made guacamole to walk around and share with the fellow floormates. In hindsight, it was kind of a bizarre thing to do, but our intentions were pure, and those who tasted the guac knew. And then there was probably the best Halloween I've ever had, the night I house party hopped Hip Forest with a full growler of craft brew in hand. I was an Aquacat jester, which was me in purple pants, a blue and purple kimono, a jester hat, and blue cat eye contacts. People looked into my eyes and freaked out when they saw the cat pupils, which happened to rotate in different directions with every blink. I managed to come across attractive enough to a mutual friend, though, and got lucky that night. It definitely felt like something I needed emotionally, for the good of my own self-efficacy. She ended up living too far away, so I had to get over the transience of it all, something I would struggle with over the years. My luck didn't end there, though. I had spent the fall working out with John at the school gym a few times a week, and he ended up really building me up. He got me on squats, overhead press, pull-ups, bench, deadlift, and row. He kept track of how much weight I had lifted the week before, and calculated for me the next weight I should do based on my BMI. I don't know if I'd look half the man I do now if it weren't for John's determination to get me swole, and I'm eternally grateful for that. Unfortunately, he left Hip Forest University at the end of the fall because he wasn't feeling like it was the right fit. I give his exercise expertise at least partial credit for the kind of physical attractiveness I possessed back then. It was the weekend he left when I met a girl named Devin while out watching music on the green that night. She was humorous and witty. Her script often came across as a little more premeditated than others, as if every point in the conversation was geared towards a greater manipulation. I clicked with her immediately that night, though, mostly through our shared appreciation of music and efforts to make each other laugh. At last, my loser dry spell had given way to a genuine hookup on a weekend night like any college kid could ever want. Though we shared plenty of good times together in the month and a half or so that followed, I grew too fond of Devin and essentially scared her away. My first mistake was when I told her that my parents were visiting and that she was welcome to meet them if she wanted. She declined the offer and was borderline offended that I'd even think of inviting her so early into whatever it was we were. After that, our relationship gained this kind of aggressive, contentious edge where I didn't feel like my attention was quite welcome anymore. She gave me plenty of signals that she would do just fine without me. While we were still seeing each other, I took a weekend to go to Hip City to see Temples, the British rock band I mentioned in the Lake House story. I made the trip by myself and realised once I got there that I wanted some DSL to connect to for the show. I texted one fellow from my Hip City days who directed me to another, and by some miracle I was able to organise a DSL pickup near the venue with plenty of time before the show. My source was a guy named Kent, a self-proclaimed spunyin and jam band enthusiast. I asked him what spunyin meant. "It's just someone who likes to get spun at shows," he said, as a matter of fact. "And sometimes fuck with the wooks," he added with a chuckle. "Does that make me a spunyin?" I wasn't a jam band festival goer, and though I was humoured by the whole thing, I was unsure whether I wanted to be a spunyin. "Hey, being a spunyin is cool. You're amongst friends," he said to cheer me up as he put his hand on my shoulder. "At least you're not a wook." I took the DSL chip and went to the show early. I wanted the DSL to settle in a bit before the show really got going. What I didn't expect was to see various members of Temples wandering the venue separate from one another, totally open to conversing with whoever approached. I introduced myself to each member except the lead vocalist, the only one who remained hidden before they took stage. They were all as kind and polite as you'd hope well-dressed Brit folks to be, and to my delight, the DSL came on gently. I conversed with other strangers in front of the stage who possessed much more social anxiety than I did. The DSL had already opened me up to a notion of interconnectedness and oneness, and I knew I had nothing to lose by being friendly to my show neighbours. The opening act was The Districts, a band I didn't know about, but blew my mind properly. Temples followed suit and proceeded to blow my mind. I loved their first album fully, and they played almost every song from it. When the show boiled down, I later wondered if the merch guy ever gave James, the lead guitarist and singer, the chunk of Brazilian amethyst I sent his way. As I exited the venue, I ran into a group of 4 people who congratulated me on my show as if I had just performed. I put on a fake accent and said something along the lines of, "Oh, you enjoyed that? It was all right, I suppose. I had fun." Only to break it to them shortly after that, I wasn't the guy. We all had a good laugh about it, and I went on my way. I called Devin to tell her how awesome it was. When she picked up the phone, she acted unpleasantly surprised to be receiving a call from me. I had just experienced the show while connected to DSL, and I only wanted to share my enjoyment, not to mention to show I was thinking about her. She found a way to coldly hurry up the conversation, because she was busy hanging with friends or something, and hung up. The call killed my vibe briefly, but I decided to save the rumination for later and contacted Zach, a buddy from my Hip City college days. He happened to be in the area, so we met up to go pick up some green power together. Our green power destination was some distance away, and Zach had his bike on him, so we had to get creative about how we were going to travel together. It's hard to remember how exactly we made it work, but it involved me crouching on the back pegs of the bike while I gripped onto his backpack. The result was a high-speed, low-riding cruise through the streets of Hip City, while still plenty in touch with the great unknown. Our green power hookup was another guy I knew from college, a man named Toronto, who resembled an owl and owned an orange and white cat named Steve. This guy knew how to chill, however cryptic and awkward he seemed, and he told us a funny story about looking for his cat Steve while on a journey in the great unknown. He got quiet and sounded close to tears as he recalled being truly unable to find Steve at points as he pled for him to come out of his hiding. The story ended with him finding Steve under the couch, and we decided to head back to Zach's to get me settled in for the night. He set me up with a subtitled Star Wars: Return of the Jedi while he went straight to bed. I stayed up almost all night and laughed my arse off to the Star Wars movie as I read phonetic translations of the Tatooine language subtitled on the screen.